Hey everybody, welcome to Q&A video number 59. Make sure to keep asking questions, doesn't matter they're about. They can be about anything. Just know I don't respond to review requests or Let's Play requests in these videos, but I will respond to those in the comments. Remember that review requests are basically things like, what do you think about insert game here? That's a review request. I don't respond to those in these videos. I just do reviews of them or MTOs, or depending on what it is, I might deny it or something like that. Just really depends on the game. So if you ask me something like that, expect to get answered in the comments. At any rate, the gameplay in the background is of Ghost Recon Future Soldier. And I do apologize for the really crappy, wildly fluctuating frame rate of the video footage, but that's because the frame rate in the game fluctuates wildly all over the place, because the game is extremely poorly optimized. And so it basically just runs like crap no matter what I do to it, and that's pretty impressive considering that I'm running a GTX 970 and i7 4790K and 16 gigs of RAM. So I should be just powering through the game no problem, except it's that badly optimized. So just bear with me on that. Now with all that out of the way, let's go ahead and start with a question from Prison Mike. Do you have any games that you play on special occasions? I tend to play Pajama Sam when my insomnia acts up, and I play Oddworld every year around Thanksgiving. There are actually a few games that I do play around special occasions. There's usually at least once a year I sit down and I try to play a good chunk of Arcanum, of Steamworks, and Magic Obscura. Pretty often when October rolls around, I start playing a lot more of Doom, and I will reinstall Fear and play that. The original Fear, not Extraction Point or anything like that, just the base game. And that's kinda it, really. Most of the time when I'm playing a game, it's because I'm working on it for a review or I just felt like playing it. If I'm going back to a classic game that I played a while ago, it's because I just felt like playing it. I don't really have a whole lot of special occasions, but there are a few of them. And for example, when it comes to 4th of July and Memorial Day, I'll fairly often play something a bit patriotic, like a World War II game or something like that. But it won't be for a particularly long period of time most of the time, so it's just a kind of occasional thing that I throw together. Next question is from Nathaniel Eugene. Do you think a franchise with an extremely negative reputation like Call of Duty or Sonic can produce a game that's able to completely wipe out the negative reputation and hail it as a shining beacon of game design like Mario or Half-Life? Sort of. I mean, Mortal Kombat had quite a few years where it was just going further and further downhill, and then all of a sudden MK9 happened. It's like, holy crap, fighting games are back! And so you do occasionally have something like that, but by and large it's just kind of a downward spiral for most series, or they'll just kind of level out. Call of Duty has basically leveled out at this point. It had its really high points with the original Call of Duty and Call of Duty 4, and since then it's just kind of fluctuated between being pretty good, like say the original Call of Duty Black Ops, and being complete crap. So it's just kind of gone all over the place, and you have that kind of pattern much more often. Or then you have something like Sonic, where the only really good game, as far as I can tell, that Sonic has produced in a long time is Sonic Generations, but I haven't really played that. So I'm basically going off of hearsay on that. So I will of course get around to playing that eventually, but right now I haven't, as I'm recording this video anyway. And that series has just gone to all sorts of hell right now. But it's possible, but very, very unlikely, I guess is the best way to say it. Next question is from the Lemo21. Which era do you prefer the most for an RTS game, a real-time strategy game? Generally speaking, I tend to prefer medieval era. So things like Age of Empires 2, Stronghold, something like that. On occasion, I will play RTSs from other eras. One thing I'm extremely sick of in general is World War II games. I hate them. They've just been driven into the ground. And if you don't understand what I'm talking about here, during the period between the release of Saving Private Ryan and basically the first Call of Duty, we got completely oversaturated with World War II games. Just non-stop. World War II this, World War II that. Whether it was an FPS, an RTS, you name it. And while some of those games were really good, don't get me wrong, it just got to the point where it was too fatiguing, and I actually can't go back to World War II games with the same kind of mentality that I would look at other games. I just go, oh great, it's yet another World War II game. So basically, as long as it's not a World War II game, I'm generally fine with it. I mean, really any era's great. I just prefer medieval era and, to a slightly lesser extent, ancient. So things like ancient Greece, ancient Egypt, something like that. I just find those periods of history a lot more interesting than more modern history. So that's how that works out. Next question is from Matoro Zelif. How do you structure your reviews and present them in a way out loud by not sounding robotic, or if you are reading it from a script? Well, to put it quite simply, I don't script my reviews. I've said this before, I'm pretty sure, but I actually do not script my reviews at all. It's entirely just stream of consciousness kind of things. And while I do occasionally take notes for myself, just mention something here and there, I just tend to go on a more general structure that I just have self-imposed. So I will produce the different audio files, because the way I actually structure my reviews, I will actually record usually 4 separate audio files. The first of them is just the intro bit where I introduce what the game is and what systems it's on. The next one is just a kind of introduction and overview of what the game is. The next one is where I talk about the presentation, and then the final audio file is where I talk about the story, the gameplay, and then my just overall conclusions on the game. That's about the only structure I really have as far as my reviews go. But I've just gotten so used to actually going through these things in a certain way that it's basically just second nature at this point. I don't really need a script, if that makes sense. And if I did have a script, it would actually sound incredibly robotic. There was actually one review I scripted, and that was my Two Worlds Epic Edition review. The simple reason for that is that I couldn't keep up the old-timey English thing that I was doing with that, because that was the joke, really. And I had to script that out, otherwise I wouldn't have been able to complete that review without just cracking up constantly or something like that. And even then, it was pretty rough. So that's about the only time you will ever see me script a review, is when I have something very, very specific I'm going for, and it will really just come across in the actual thing. It's usually if I'm doing something that's really unusual for my reviews. But other than that, it's just me talking about the game. And while I might have, like I said, a few bullet points or something like that to keep me on track, to say, oh, well, I need to mention this, I need to talk about this, and just try to keep it in some sort of structure, most of the time I just end up talking about the game in a fairly logical pattern. So there you go. Last question for today is from American Soldier. What do you think of developers using Kickstarter or Indiegogo such as inXile or Obsidian to fund their games? Depending on who it is and what they produce, I'm all for it. I mean, Obsidian and inXile have gone through great success on Kickstarter. I haven't actually reviewed Wasteland 2 yet, because I'm waiting on the sort of director's cut, or whatever the edition is that they're calling it. It's basically just an updated version of the game. I'm waiting on that to drop before I actually put my review out for it. But it's actually a pretty fantastic RPG. And so if something like that comes along, it's a game that, for example, could not have been done through a major publisher because they just won't fund it, like a party-based RPG or an old-school dungeon crawler kind of thing. All for it. If it's a developer's passion project and it is very, very clear that they have a distinct enthusiasm for what they're doing, then that's another thing. I'm all for it. If it's like Shenmue, on the other hand, where sure, it's great that Shenmue 3 is happening for those people who are interested in Shenmue, but if it's like that, where it's just kind of shady what's going on with it, then I'm not okay with it. Or if it's some developer or something like that trying to just kind of make a quick buck off a Kickstarter or something like that, not okay with that. Again, I'm okay with it if it actually produces good results. So it's really just a situational kind of thing. The concept itself, it's great. It's just how you use it. And that can go with so many things in life that it's just kind of ridiculous to say that at this point, honestly. Anyway, that was Q&A 59. Make sure to keep asking questions, and I will catch you guys in later videos.